Almost everyone, whether they're Republican or Democrat, agrees that the debt ceiling has to be raised. If not, the results could be catastrophic. But Florida Republican Governor Rick Scott is saying just the opposite. Listen.
We can decide how we want to spend the money, but we cannot continue to have trillion-dollar deficits. You just can't do it. And so we've got to decide, and now's as good a time as any, is what you have to do in businesses and what we had to do at the state. Stop spending money. Stop borrowing more money. We need to have balanced budgets, just like we do in the state. So I wouldn't raise the debt ceiling. I would say no more.
Joining me now live from Tallahassee is Governor Rick Scott. Governor, welcome to the program. I mean, your opinion and your advice here runs counter to just about what everyone from both parties is saying, and it goes against what everyone in the financial markets is telling me in 15 years of my own capital markets reporting experience. So tell me exactly why raising the debt ceiling wouldn't have an effect on markets, the economy, or states.
Well, what do families do? If one of the parents loses their job, they stop spending. They have to. They don't just keep borrowing money. What do businesses do if their revenues go down? They have to stop borrowing money. Our government's no different. We can't, I mean, what's the limit? Is it 14 trillion, 16 trillion, 20 trillion? And who's going to pay for this? Our kids are going to pay for this. We have got to say that, look, we have enough revenues. We've got to prioritize how we spend money. That's what we had to do in Florida. When I became governor in January, we were looking at almost a $4 billion budget deficit. We had to pick and choose what we're going to do. We can't do everything. Government can't do everything.
But aren't those two different arguments? Those are two different arguments. You've got, and you're right. Our deficits and our debt is unsustainable. It just is. And that's a question that through the democratic process, we have to figure out how to fix that. But raising the debt ceiling, that's paying for what Congress has already spent. That's paying for the obligations that Congress, both parties over the past decade, the money that they have already spent. What about the message it sends to the rest of the world? That we're not going to pay all of our bills?
No, we can pay our bills. What we have to do is stop spending. We have enough revenues. We need to say, look, we're not going to borrow any more money. We're going to today, just like what we do in business, today what we're going to do is we're going to figure out how we're going to spend the money we get. And we're going to prioritize what's important.
Okay, so if you prioritize what's important, what that means is that if you don't raise the debt ceiling, at some point either August 2nd, maybe August 10th, sometime in the coming days, you have 40% less money available to pay those bills. Not all the bills can get paid. The rest of the world looks at us and says, the United States is picking and choosing what bills it's going to pay. How is that sustainable for markets? How is that? I mean, what if there are companies in your state that they see higher interest rates for the debt that they're taking on to grow and to create jobs for Floridians?
Higher interest rates are going to be caused by borrowing more money. I mean, this is not different than a company. If a company has a drop in revenues, you have to stop spending money. You have to say, that was a nice to have, but it doesn't make any sense. We have to prioritize. That's what our states are doing. That's what we did. That's how we're going to get our economy going again. We should not be spending more money. There's a limit of how much money we can spend.
But they're spending. With all due respect, they're spending more money, and they're paying for what we already spent.
If you don't mind, I just have to. Governor, I'm not understanding. Christine's probably asked you this 4 times already. We're not talking about spending more money. We're talking about paying the bills you already committed to. Why is this difficult for you to understand, Governor?
Well, look, this is what we did in Florida. We stopped spending more money. We prioritized how we're going to spend money. We have to do the same. We can stop borrowing money at the federal level if we cut our spending at the federal level. We don't have to keep borrowing more money. We can't. I mean, there's a cap on how much eventually people stop spending money.
So if you had to cut 40% of spending, what would you cut? I mean, what you'd pay Social Security recipients first. You'd pay active duty military. You'd pay the interest on our debt. Now you've pretty much gotten up to what's coming in. So what do you cut? You cut food stamps. You cut federal education spending. You cut disaster relief. You cut foreign aid. What would you cut?
Well, you go through the most important things, just like what you do at the state level. You go through the most important things, and then you have to cut back. You have to figure out, what do companies do? When they have to do it, they have to say, you know what, I could outsource that and I can do it less expensively. You know, we don't need to do that to get the revenues we need. We can figure out a way to do that less expensively.
You don't think this is going to that would just crash jobs?
We have to do the exact same thing
at
the federal level.
In the near term, we have to get jobs under. If we don't get jobs growing, we're not going to have an economy growing, and we're going to still have a problem in perpetuity.
I agree.
So, look, even Ben Bernanke said, if you don't raise the debt ceiling, you have an immediate cut in 40% of federal spending. I mean, the impact near term on the economy would be disastrous. Does this have to be done with a little more thoughtfulness than just an 11th hour electioneering?
We've been doing this, and it hasn't helped our economy. We did the stimulus. It didn't help our economy. What's going to help our economy is act responsibly.
And we've had years and years of tax cuts, which are supposed to grow jobs, and that hasn't helped either, right?
Well, if you look at the states that are growing, like our state, we have no personal income tax. We're phasing out the business tax. Look at Texas. They have lower taxes. They're growing. So absolutely, lower taxes make the economy grow. Higher taxes, more regulation, trillion-dollar deficits, that kills our economy. This is about jobs. This is about our future. We cannot continue to borrow money.
All right, Governor Rick Scott, Republican of Florida, thanks so much for joining us.